Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
Friday, July 18th. We have weathered the one big beautiful bill process, and so Trump got his biggest legislative package, and I guess he's riding high because everybody loves what he's doing, and there's no resistance or pushback.
Well, it is funny. It seemed like Trump was kind of on a roll, and now the Epstein thing, I think, has slowed his roll.
So I know it's harder and harder for me to use you as my window into the conservative diaspora. But you do live in West Virginia.
True.
You do still have some conservative friends.
Yes.
I wrote about this on Tuesday. But you tell me if you think I'm
on week 2 of writing about Epstein, so that tells
okay.
you how long the story has gone on, which is very unusual in Trump world. If it's a negative story, he can change the subject. That has not worked so far.
Well, and he obviously thought he could have by now, but I mean, the media will always be attracted to intra-party warfare, so that you can't really look away from that stuff. My sense of what has kept MAGA together, and not to say it's just it's one thing, but a thing that keeps it together is conspiracy theorizing. Like, that's not just like a hobby or a sideline. I mean, Trump began his political career, not counting the 2000 Reform Party campaign that fizzled out, but starting with the birther conspiracy on Obama in 2011. And it's just been one conspiracy on top of another, going forward. And it positions you as way outside the establishment. You could appeal to anyone who has innate cynicism or skepticism of government. There's something nefarious going on in the deep state, and I'm completely untethered to it. And I'm going to get in there and I'm going to expose it. And that's a sort of a limiting political strategy because a lot of people aren't conspiracy theorists, but when you talk about this being a cult, like, that forges a very deep bond. If you believe that there's something evil in government that you're going to root out, you're gonna be ride or die with the person you think is going to root it out. And people in 2024 blocked out that Trump already kind of betrayed his squeamishness about the Epstein conspiracy when he was on Fox in June. He was asked,
the Rachel Campus Duffy interview, right?
Yeah, will you give us 9/11 files? Yeah, will you give us JFK files? Yeah, will you give us Epstein? I think so, but I don't want to make anybody look bad. It's unfair, but see about it. Because when they first aired it, they chopped off. They did a 60 minutes and they chopped off, the second part of the answer, and we only saw the full clip later. And so it seems like a lot of people in my world didn't even know or accept that he was kind of iffy on it. And now it's like, whoa, what? You're not going to give us the whole thing? Like, it seems it's different than flip-flopping on an issue. It seems much more central to the bond that they have. Do you think that's a fair takeaway?
Absolutely. And I think this hits on multiple fronts, right? On one hand, Epstein really was a sex trafficker. There really are victims that really do deserve justice. And there probably are people who ought to be brought to justice besides just Maxwell and Epstein. So there's legitimacy here. Obviously, this is also part of a larger crazy conspiracy theory touching on anti-Semitism and drinking blood and pedophilia rings. And I do think you have a point there, Bill. There's something exciting about being part of a movement to uncover this. And it's almost, Will Summers talked about this over at the Bulwark. It's almost like solving a puzzle and being a part of a movement to try to do good. And then there's this quixotic belief that that was part of the QAnon phenomenon, which is related to this, that like once everything is revealed, and the storm comes or whatever they call it, that like then if you have cancer, you're going to be cured because those people, the deep state, the pedophile ring, Tom Hanks and Oprah, whatever, they're stopping progress or it's obviously diluted, but this was a big part of Trumpism, of MAGA. And Bill, to me, what I'm watching, so there's rank and file voters out there who feel betrayed by this, but I'm watching, Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk, and then even people like Nick Fuentes, on the extreme. Well, I guess Candace Owens is with him over there, and then people like Theo Von and Shane Gillis, who are these kind of bro podcasters who are not ideologues, who are not partisans. And it hasn't stopped. This is ongoing. So I don't know where it ends, but I do suspect at a certain point this is suppressed, but I don't think it fully goes away.
Well, it's hard to see how it can. I mean, the whole thing with conspiracies, it's like the birther stuff. Well, why? Just give him the documents, or the Swift boat. Just give him the documents. Like you can relent and say, fine, here you go. Here's what I have, and you can still always find a way. Well, this is fake, or this must be something else revealed, or
the full form birth certificate, or whatever. Yeah. The long form birth certificate. Yeah.
You will never satisfy a hardcore conspiracy theorist. I mean, these people are expecting individuals are going to be convicted for being part of a conspiracy, right? And I'm hesitant to go down this path because I talked to a number of people on the left who basically think at this point that Trump's involved in his own cover-up, that he's implicated or his friends are implicated, and he's trying to protect them. And that could be true. I mean, we know Trump is longtime friends with Epstein. We have the Wall Street Journal story today about it, the bawdy birthday card that he sent Epstein, and it's a plausible conclusion that there are names of people who traveled with Epstein who are mentioned in files, who they don't have enough evidence to actually convict for anything. And it's general practice for prosecutors to not drag people's names through the mud if you're not going to indict them, and if you can indict them. So even if you did release stuff, you'd probably have to redact those names, and that would just feed more conspiracy theorizing. And Trump is not capable of just saying that. He's like, look, I know this is frustrating, but there are a bunch of names, and it's just not proper practice to reveal them when we don't have enough evidence to actually prosecute. And that's it. Even if he did say it wouldn't satisfy enough people, he's not going to say it because that's not how he plays the game. So I don't see how it can end to end.
Yeah, I agree. I think it ultimately people move on, it gets suppressed, but I think it lingers like a virus, sort of lying dormant, like the way that George Bush never fully recovered, say, from missing WMDs. Everyone moved on. He didn't. They didn't come and take him away, but never fully recovered. I think that what. And by the way, I don't know if you saw the Trump administration put out. Very unusual. The fact that Donald Trump is suffering from a chronic illness, having and if you saw the pictures of his hands with makeup on them, if you saw the cankles something's up with him physically. I think that is real. I'm not, look, he's an older person. This happens. But I think that's related to this story, which is to say, I think that there are some people in the MAGA right who are looking past Donald Trump now. For the first time, they're seeing him as a lame duck. And they're seeing that their incentives have shifted. Their incentives in the past had always been to align with Trump, to stick with him no matter what. But now Trump is on the side of the deep state. And so they're thinking about their post-Trump podcasting careers. I think Dan Bongino is someone who probably got caught up in more than anybody in this tension between, on one hand, he's the deputy FBI director and he needs to be loyal to Trump. And it's always been smart politically to be loyal to Trump. On the other hand, he had this podcast empire that he's probably just basically put on hold. Someday he's going to want to go back. And just like Bill, George W. Bush used to be wildly popular amongst Republicans. If you said something Karl Rove didn't like as a conservative, they would make your life difficult. Okay? And then later it became not only acceptable to criticize Bush, but profitable. The same thing could happen with Trump. And I'm not talking about never Trumpers, we get our day. No, I'm talking about MAGA, that MAGA transcends Trump and outlasts Trump. And that being on the wrong side of this issue, which is to say, saying there's nothing to see here, Epstein killed himself, he wasn't bribing anybody, there's no missing minutes in the videotape, Pam Bondi never said she had as a client list on her desk, is not gonna look good in 5 or 10 years.
I wrote, I think even before he was inaugurated, that Trump is automatically a lame duck going in. And don't buy the third term business. Like, he's not going to be on the ballot again. And at some point, Republicans will realize that their fates are not fully intertwined with Trump's fate. Now, they did a bunch of third term puffery, and Trump did enough flexing to get the budget reconciliation bill passed. I mean, that basically came down to vulnerable Republicans saying, "Ugh, I hate this bill, but I just can't. I can't, cross with Trump. I'm gonna get a primary. I can't do it." So he kept it going long enough, I think, to get as much as you could expect legislatively in the first part of the term. And looking after the midterm, it's very possible that Republicans won't have the House, and that's the end of the legislative process. So they got done with they probably get done with it. But I think now that is behind us, and you have the Epstein kerfuffle, I think you're going to start seeing more and more attempts at separation because the more Trump sinks in popularity, the less that he has currency with the base, the freer a Republican is to create distance.
And let me say, I always bring this up, in Rocky IV, Rocky's fighting the Russian, and there's he's been cut. The Russian's been cut, and it's a bad cut. Like, this guy was seen as invincible until Rocky makes him bleed. And I think there's been a sense, because Trump has had this miraculous comebacks. You think he's down and out. How many times have we written his, political obituary? You think he's down and out with the Access Hollywood video, and then he comes back and he reanimates, and he always comes back. He loses an election and he comes back and wins again. You can never write him off. And so I think there's a real fear of him and a hesitancy to write him off or to try to, get past him if you're on the right. But I'm telling you what, Bill, I'm seeing, and again, some of these characters are interesting, but like Nick Fuentes, you know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the videos of him lately?
No, I haven't.
Okay. He is, now look, he's not a normal Republican. This is somebody, he did have dinner one time.
Does he even call himself a Republican?
No, I don't think so. He is basically a racist. I don't know what you would call him.
Well, he's racist.
But I don't know, like, he's a conspiracy theorist, probably. I don't know how you would define him, but
Mhm.
he's, is he a white supremacist? But he's named Fuentes. I don't know. But he's out there basically attacking Trump and saying F you, like, but not F you to Trump. And he's fat and he's bald and he's, people are going after Trump now in ways that I didn't think possible. And I have to say, this happened a lot quicker than I thought it would, Bill, the lame duck thing. And I wrote a piece just a month ago when Tucker Carlson and others were starting to mildly criticize Trump for bombing Iran. And I wrote a piece saying, this is just an elite problem for Trump, because the base is really with him and Trump is a cult leader. So, don't get carried away thinking that there's a civil war. Things have changed because, as going back to where we started, the point you made initially, Bill, the one thing that they care about are conspiracy theories. That is the deliverable. They didn't elect Donald Trump to give them corporate tax cuts. They elected Donald Trump to expose a child sex ring and all the people on the Epstein client list. And he is failing now to do that. So he is breaking that very strong bond that he had, not with everybody, but with a non-zero, I would say important part of his coalition.
I mean, that's why I would, and this is what I wrote about on Tuesday at the Washington Monthly, I would rather Democrats, instead of trying to push a Trump-focused conspiracy. Trump's involved in a big cover-up because he's implicated in these files, or his friends are implicated in these files. It's incredibly tempting to do that, and there's reason to believe that he could be. There is a certain amount of smoke there. I get it, but the bigger objective, in my opinion, is to delegitimize conspiracy theorizing. We don't want our politics to be infected with this every cycle, because that's a hard terrain for Democrats to function in. Democrats are inherently a governing party that has to grapple with the complexities of reality, and they're not going to find political rocket fuel at jumping from perceived scandal to perceived scandal. And here's an opportunity to say, you elect someone like Donald Trump who claims they're going to reveal this and reveal that, and guess what? The truth is, Trump did that for his own political objectives, not because he has any interest in finding truth. He's just preying upon people's skepticism of government. He's not interested in actually making government function well.
Maybe this is an interesting debate, Bill, because I do think there's a way. And I agree with you that just for the sake of liberal democracy, if we have two parties who are both engaged in crazy conspiracy theories and that's their primary way of winning election, that would not be great for America. But on the other hand, it is a fact. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein did do bad stuff, and P. Diddy and Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. It doesn't go as far as the QAnon people say it goes, but it is a fact that there are a lot of elites who are involved in some very disturbing behavior.
But that's not the same as the government is run by a pedophile ring, and
True.
That's why you don't have a good manufacturing job.
Of course, but I do think that part of what Democrats need to do, and I hate to say this because I don't like this, but I'm starting to think, I wrote a piece in the LA Times the other week based on this Zohran Mamdani success, which is, the Democrats tried to be the serious institutional party and lost. And so maybe they need to fight fire with fire, right? So maybe the way to do that is class warfare. And there is a theme here. When you look at some of these elites, that there are powerful people who are exploiting, and I don't know if there's a way to make that into not a crazy conspiracy theory, but like a populist message that you could rally behind in a way that maybe touches a little bit on this energy without going full on Q.
I mean, Donald Trump was already found liable for sexual assault in the Eugene Carroll case. Donald Trump was already convicted of criminal fraud for covering up his affair with Stormy Daniels, even though he didn't get a sentence out of it.
Well, let's put him on the list with all the other names the litany of names I mentioned earlier.
But even getting that, adjudicated in a court of law was not enough to stop him from getting reelected. So, I mean, you don't want to look away from a provable crime. If you have real evidence that a crime is being committed, I do think you have an obligation to pursue that. We're well short of that here. I mean, look, if Democrats win the House and they want to subpoena a bunch of stuff and see what they can get, have at it. Like I don't have a problem with that.
Maybe that becomes a bigger campaign issue than it should be. Like what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be smart for Democrats to say, if you want to get to the bottom of this, elect us, because we were going to do this, and this, and hold hearings and get to the bottom of the Epstein thing.
My sense of all the history of elections that I've looked at is like that kind of scandal pursuit has generally not been a great ticket, because people are generally more concerned about their own day to day, and it feels like a lot of political gamesmanship. So I wouldn't lead with that.
Okay, maybe you don't lead with it, Bill, but think of it. Donald Trump, and I'm just thinking out loud here, okay? This is, half-baked, but Donald Trump has this unwieldy coalition, and it's full of some people, as you and I both know, who will never leave him, right? They're locked in. They're never going to leave Trump. But it's also got a lot of people in it, and I'm thinking of these young men, for example, who are normally apolitical, kind of low-information voters, gamers. They listen to Rogan, Vaughn, that kind of thing. And they're not partisan Republicans or ideological Burkeans or anything like that. Not that you would be a Burkean for Trump anyway. If Democrats made this, it doesn't have to be their only deliverable, but if they got in this game a little bit, couldn't you, and again, I know Trump's not on the ballot anyway, so maybe it's a moot point, but like, couldn't you start to cause Trump to suffer some attrition? And wouldn't it be smart for Dems to play a little psyops here and troll a little bit here?
Well, I think a psyop strategy would be targeted social media ads, targeted print mail. You should be able to get the data to really find the households who are MAGA people, young male MAGA. And there's going to be votes apparently. So House Republicans are trying to do a non-binding vote on asking justice to release files. I'm not sure that's actually going to get to the floor because there's some pushback to it. I know there's a discharge petition that 9 Republicans have already signed on to, and so all the Democrats came aboard. I haven't read the language of it, but I believe that actually is a harder demand to get files released. Of course, if it passes the House, it still has to get. I don't think it's something that just the House can ask for. Maybe I'm mistaken. I haven't read up on it enough. I don't know if the House by themselves can say you must. This is a subpoena. You must give this to us, or if it has to go to the Senate and become law. I'm not 100% sure. Apologies for not doing my research before the show.
Bill, come on.
But
I did my dissertation on that.
I assume there'll be votes of some sort, or if votes were blocked, then you can use that, and so you can have the target ad saying, "So and so Congressperson didn't step up didn't sign this discharge petition, didn't vote for this bill, didn't vote for this resolution, whatever it is, and try to weaken the base turnout for that person in the midterm election. I would do that kind of thing more than I'd make it like the marquee message for the whole midterm campaign.
Gotcha. Okay. So much to talk about with Epstein, and we could go on, but probably don't need to. So two quick things I want to, or did you have a final thought on that, Bill, before we move on?
We can move on.
Okay. So I do want to ask you about the Colbert show being canceled by CBS. But first, I'm hearing this word. It sounds very painful. The word is rescissions.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a medical procedure to me. I don't know. Maybe that's telling. But what are these rescissions I'm hearing about? If you could just bottom line this for me so I don't have to go to Grok and ask it.
Hitler said about rescissions. So a rescission. So every year Congress passes appropriations that fund the government for that fiscal year, and they are passed, not through budget reconciliation, so they can't circumvent the filibuster. They need some Democratic support, in practicality in the Senate to get to the president's desk. And they have force of law. Congress passed this, you must spend it. Trump began the year saying, I don't know if I can ignore that. I can just not spend it. That's called impoundment.
Right. Impoundment.
And Democrats have been saying you're breaking the law by doing this, and some of that stuff's being litigated, I believe. So
for example, wasn't am I correct? Ukraine spending was an example of this, right? At a certain point.
It may have been.
I think there was money at a certain point that was allocated for Ukraine that was not being sent to them.
Yeah, that should apply. I mean, presidents have a certain foreign policy latitude, but I think if it's congressionally appropriate, they're legally speaking, they're supposed to spend it.
Let's say it's a great example.
Okay. So a rescission is Congress saying, scratch that line item. We're going to pull that one back. So it's not presidentially, it's not executive authority. It's Congress saying we don't need that one. The catch is that through a quirk in the law, Congress can pass a rescission akin to a budget reconciliation and circumvent the filibuster. So the spending appropriations get passed on a bipartisan basis and then can get rescinded on a partisan basis. And it's not that much money. It was like $9 billion, I think the final price tag was, and it's targeting public broadcasting and foreign aid. So it's not that. So it has acute effect on these programs, but in terms of the bigger budget, it's dropping the bucket.
But it sounds like it's unchivalrous, right? Because you go to Democrats and get their help to pass the appropriations, and then once they do that, once they help you, then you screw them over by taking away things that they wouldn't have supported. They wouldn't have supported it if they knew that you were going to defund.
Well, it's right, and so it's July, end of the fiscal year at the federal levels, end of September. You have to pass the next batch of fiscal year 2026 appropriations. You need Democratic help for that, and they're like, you are going to poison the well of this process because we can't negotiate with you in good faith if you're going to pull this stunt again.
Yeah. And
if they can't figure out a way around that, then you're going to have a government shutdown. I mean, I don't know what's being discussed to try to avert that possibility, to try to put something in the appropriations bill itself, something that says, like, you can't rescission this. I'm not saying that would fly, but it's the only thing I can think of that would sort of say, how else can I work with you if this is the way you're gonna do business? So and for what? For this rinky-dink amount of money? Because You really want to make it so like a rural state like South Dakota can't have a PBS station? That seems kind of silly, but
But
we're living with.
but it's a big deliverable for Republicans. You probably get more mileage if you're a Republican by saying that you defunded PBS Kids than you would get by saying you got a bridge built or something, right? I mean, it is a deliverable for them.
Well, we'll see if that's, a cutting off the nose despite your face situation, because as much as on a national level, PBS, NPR have been punching bags, there are red states that have PBS and NPR stations that people listen to, and sometimes really rely upon in remote areas that don't have a lot of news, and you might even need for like emergency purposes. I mean, those are the ones probably more vulnerable just going down altogether. Maybe a big city station has more revenue sources from like local donations, and a rural one might not. So this might actually have some negative blowback that they didn't think through.
Although I am told that Elmo is racist and anti-Semitic, so maybe he had it coming. I don't know. All right, last topic. Stephen Colbert, the Late Show. This was David Letterman for many years sat in this chair. And I guess in May, I think it is May or June of next year, they will go off the air.
The intent is not just Colbert being fired; it's the Late Show as a show being canceled,
which feels like a big deal, right? I mean, is it just like the end of the? Is this the first sign, the beginning of the end of these late night shows, which used to be so influential and powerful and popular, and now, feel like a shell of themselves as it is?
Well, I mean, so we're already having this debate. Is this a on the level financial decision for a broadcast network that these are expensive shows to produce, and they don't bring in the same amount of revenue that they used to, and the revenue, line is declining fast, and we got to put some kind of cheaper content into this time slot to justify it? Or is this CBS's parent company, Paramount, surrendering to Donald Trump yet again? They already coughed up a payout over the 60 Minutes thing, which was totally bogus. And it seems like a de facto bribe to get a merger approved. And this is another pound of flesh, whack Colbert, so who's a Trump antagonist to make Trump happy. And I think the proof in that pudding is going to be what happens to the other late night shows. Mm-hmm. If they all go down, if Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel, if all the networks say, you know what, we were carrying this burden because we didn't want to go first because it'd be bad luck, and you guys went first, now we can do it too. Then you got a better argument that the entire format was a dinosaur. Or if it's like, you know what, Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon get more audience because Colbert's not around and they are even more flush, then it's going to feel more like this was punishment for Colbert and Paramount, being supine to Trump.
I mean, it could be a combination of things, but clearly there is not the demand for this kind of entertainment that there used to be. I mean, just the proliferation of, think of it. It used to be you had 3 TV channels, and if it was 11:30 at night, you're probably going to watch Carson. Carson was, number one, great, but just, you didn't have a lot of options,
Arsenio took a chunk out of that. And, Joan Rivers.
Remember Carcinio?
Oh, yes. I've rewatched that sketch many times. So, Joan Rivers didn't get a fair shake. Johnny Carson basically froze her out and made it hard for her to get guests, but I think she probably could have had a very viable show if Johnny Carson played fair. Arsenio came in and wasn't susceptible to any kind of strong arming by Carson because Arsenio was getting a different kind of guest and playing to a different kind of audience. And this is sort of the beginning of the niche audience play at late night, where Carson couldn't be just the broadly appealing show for the entire country. Arsenio Hall had a more diverse audience, had a younger audience, which the Carcinio sketch of Dana
I
Carvey
did
on
not know
SNL,
that.
mocked Carson for realizing he was over the hill and was trying to act like
Ed,
Carson, which
did you know
apparently
that, Ed?
ended their relationship. Carson and Jennifer used to be a regular on the Tonight Show, and that was the end, and never got a call back after that.
I'm sorry. Who got ended by Carson?
Dana Carvey.
Oh, okay. Because he did the Carcinio sketch on SNL.
Right.
It's a shame. No, look, I think the world's changing and people are watching podcasts, watching them, listening to them, YouTube. Forget like Netflix and all the other options we have. I mean, just like, it used to be that like, and Letterman, Carson, whatever would be topical. Well, you can get that from podcasting now. So, it just seems like it's a format problem more than anything else.
But that's a challenge for all of television, and they're all functioning on podcast platforms, social media platforms. I mean, a lot of Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon content is consumed the day after. Saturday Night Live content is consumed the day after. Again, I'm not in the executive chair. I don't have to make the budget numbers line up, so I'm not speaking from a position of authority or deep knowledge here. But I mean, these shows were still making money. They weren't losing money. The revenue stream was going down, but they're still making money. And which shows even in a diversified marketplace, broadcast television still has some reach that the average podcaster doesn't have. And then the question is, well, how do you leverage that to make as much money as possible? I mean, what are podcasts but comedic chit chat and interviews? I mean, that's what a lot of it is, and that's what Colbert and Kimmel and Fallon do. But presumably they can do it with bigger name guests, bigger name comedians, bigger sketches the way SNL does. But
the problem too is that they're constrained by this commercial format. I mean, Rogan could have on Dave Chappelle, or Theo Von could have on Dave Chappelle, and they could talk for 2 hours uninterrupted. I mean, their conversation's uninterrupted. There might be a commercial in between or something, but they don't know it. And it hasn't changed the flow of their so I did a cable news hit this week for the first time in a long time that I've done one, like a late night cable news hit, and just Bill, I mean, it's one of those things where like I'm going on to talk about Epstein, so I'm like, okay, I'll do it because I'm already writing about Epstein, but then they fire James Comey's daughter, who was a prosecutor. Trump fired her like 2 hours before I'm supposed to go on. So now it's a segment with like me, a former FBI director, and an attorney. And they go to them to talk about the Comey daughter firing, and then me to talk about the political ramifications of Epstein. And it was like they tried to like put these stories together that didn't exactly fit. And you've got 6 minutes to do it before the commercial break. And it's like they're forcing this. Like, I think I had a lot of things I could have said about Epstein that just didn't get asked or get said just because you don't have time. I don't know if you've been watching.
Well, I have that frustration with a lot of cable news stuff, and I watch a lot less of it for that reason. But I can't obviously deny the success of the Joe Rogans, who have these very long form podcasts. Mark Maron's the same way. Although they're probably pulling the plug on that.
He's leaving.
He's leaving, but I think that's just it. I mean, the guy had done like years of hours of content. I can understand why he do something else. I don't think it was that he was not making money doing it anymore. But just from your own social media work, what gets more views, your 40-minute video or your 2-minute video? Most content is bite-sized.
Yeah, but Bill, the way you get the good bite-sized content is, I'm not saying the only way, but for us, you and I could have a 45-minute conversation, and then I'll make a short that's 2 minutes of the best part of our we only get those 2 minutes because we did the other 43 minutes. You know what I'm saying? If you just gave us
a point that was made, I tend to, when I'm on Facebook, I don't do TikTok, but I will scroll through Facebook Reels as like a little nighttime,
Yeah.
wind
Some
down
of them are
thing.
great.
Yeah. And so because of the algorithm, I get certain things, and so some of them are, interview snippets. And so there's a Jerry Seinfeld podcast interview that he did, where he's talking about how he, made it, by getting on Johnny Carson, and how, when you do,
I've seen this one. Yep.
You do a 40 minutes where you got it from.
Maybe.
You do a 40. You get to a point where you have 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You get asked to go
As
on
a stand-up comedian, you need 40 minutes of
comedian,
material.
He's got 40 minutes of material. You get the call to be on Carson. You get out there with your best 6 minutes. You kill it, and then you get asked back. You better have another 6 minutes that's as good. And he told the story about a guy who got that call, used his best 6 minutes, got called back. Instead of coming up with another 6 minutes, is there coming up with another 40-minute set where you could take your best 6 from? He took the second best 6 minutes from his previous 40-minute set, and then he got a third call back and did his third best set of 6 minutes, and the laughs weren't there as much. He never got a call back again. So it told a lesson to Seinfeld that you have to just keep producing all the time large chunks of material so you can cull the best when you get that kind of call. But a Colbert, I mean, again, I'm not the expert here. When you're operating at that level of a Colbert or Kimmel or Fallon, presumably you're so good that you can extract quality material. I mean, these guys are doing it nightly. I mean, you might say that each show is not 3 hours, but they're producing, over an hour of content every day, which is multiple hours for a week. You should make money off of that somehow. But again, I'm not the person who has to build the set and hire all the stagehands and make all the numbers work.
I don't know if you've ever seen Hacks, the Gene Smart vehicle.
I've been told I should see it, but I have not
on
seen
HBO. The last season, the latest season, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, but she ends up she basically is Joan Rivers, but at the age of like 70 some, she becomes the first female late night host. But she's also trying to make this work in an environment where it's harder to be successful late night. So it's kind of an irony. She gets the gig, but now there aren't as many people watching, and it's a lot harder. So, but it definitely gives me insight into what the Colbert story. And I would also plug, Bill, since we mentioned Mark Maron, I've been watching Stick, which is an Apple TV show with Owen Wilson and Mark Maron, which I'm enjoying. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but worth seeing.
I'll say something else about Colbert, which I don't love having to say, but I do sort of feel it. Colbert, when he started 10 years ago, it was pre-Trump, and they didn't quite find their audience right away. Colbert had this great run on The Daily Show playing a conservative caricature. And now he's having to shift and be, his own person. And didn't quite figure out exactly what the vibe was going to be on the show. Then here comes Trump. Then all of a sudden, almost everything in culture divides along a Trump, anti-Trump fault line. And Colbert finds an audience becoming a regular Trump critic on the show, and actually making it harder for Jimmy Fallon to find an audience, because Fallon was trying to be all things to all people. And Jimmy Kimmel was never really known as a political comedian, and then he became very anti-Trump in all of his monologues. And just for myself, I find it kind of boring. I want less Trump in my life. I don't want him dominating and infecting everything that I consume. So I end up watching those monologues less because, you don't like Trump. I don't like Trump. I get it, but Trump's a buffoon. Trump's a criminal. I know all these things. I don't need it to be repeated to me every single day. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what it is that you do instead when Trump casts this long shadow, but I do think that makes it very challenging for any kind of late night show.
I agree. And, we may be unique because since we do Trump for a living, we really don't want to hear about Trump during our off-duty hours, so maybe normal people who don't work in politics don't have quite the same aversion to it in their comedy that we do. But I'm with you. And I will say, this will sound weird because I know I probably sound like I'm obsessed with these podcasters. And I know that they have been linked to Trump in some ways, but I have to tell you, part of what makes some of these podcasters so good is that they don't talk about politics. So like I was listening the other day, Theo Von, this is probably about a month old now. He interviewed a Las Vegas cop, a retired Las Vegas cop, not a famous one, just a retired Las Vegas cop, and did like an hour and a half asking him questions about what are you seeing? What did you see out there? Did you ever show up to anyone's hotel room and something really weird was going on? Just like, it's utterly fascinating and it takes your mind away. It's still intellectually stimulating, but it's not about Trump and it's not about rescissions or whatever. And so in a way, it gives you a break from this stuff. So
I read an article that disturbed me in the New York Times about MTV's road rules. So I'll look back at MTV's road rules, which I never watched. It was one of those decisions, like it was a really kind of low odds that I would even click on this article and read it. But I was at a point where I was sort of scrolling around and I was bored with all the Trump stuff. And I was like, I'll read this one. And it basically was an argument because I did not know that Theo Von started there.
That's right.
He was a road rules. He was like a character when he was 19. And so I pointed that Theo Von's now big in, manosphere podcast world. And Sean Duffy, who's a congressman, was MTV Real World, or was he Road Rules? One of the two.
No, his wife was Real World. Rachel Campos Duffy, the aforementioned Rachel Campos Duffy's his wife. Sean Duffy was definitely on a big reality show. I don't remember.
Well, I think it was Road Rules then.
Was it? Okay.
And sort of making an argument that this was sort of dictating, Road Rules was dictating, not just Road Rules and Real World defined reality TV, and we're living with that culturally, but it also launched people into the political sphere. Totally. And that was a very unpleasant thing to learn about.
We're just going to have to realize it. I mean, when I tweeted about Colbert losing his gig, one of the commenters said, like, the modern day inheritors of Johnny Carson are not Stephen Colbert, it's Dave Portnoy and Joe Rogan. And like, I don't know if those two people specifically are, but what I did like about that comment is that I do think that just like in the future, politicians are going to come from weird places like reality TV shows, that, the late night, it's sort of, we're thinking linear, like the inheritor of Carson should be Letterman, and after Letterman, Fallon, and after Fallon, but actually it's not linear. And it's, there may be somebody who's charismatic and catches our attention, but they probably won't be in the same format as the last guy.
Well, what really is hard for the late night shows now, because it's such a expansive media environment, and we've really broken down so many barriers between celebrities and the public. We know so much more about their personal lives. We know so much more about like the backstories of how TV shows and movies are made. You go back to 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, Hollywood was far more mystical and distant. And to have a celebrity on the couch next to a Johnny Carson was a more rare peek in who these people are, that you didn't get in many other places. You have celebrity magazines, you got a few talk shows, and that's pretty much it. And now you get so much of that. I mean, in the celebrities' own social media feeds, let alone going on to some show. That, I mean, this is the same problem with cable with cable news. Like I can get news so many other places, or I should say more specifically, like a Sunday TV show. That might have been a place where I would never learn what was going on with a particular politician or a particular bill until I got this 30 minutes of block time on Sunday morning. Now I'm getting it in spades everywhere else. Maybe not the same quality, maybe not the same level of sophistication, but I'm getting something. And so I don't need to wake up early on Sunday to get that. I don't need to stay up late before work the next day to get a celebrity interview, because I can get so many other places. And so what do you do in that slot that's better than the other places? That's a harder bar to clear.
Yeah, there's the disintermediation of media where, like, Ted Cruz doesn't need to come on my podcast. He just started his own and has more, more viewers, more listeners. There's a downside to that, obviously, but it is what it is. And so celebrities don't need a gatekeeper to give them a platform. They can say what they want and make money off of it if they want. So yeah, it's a totally different world. We're adapting. Look at, we used to be like talking to each other on the phone, Bill, literally, while we would record on QuickTime. We'd be like talking on a phone so we could hear each other. And now here we are, almost 4K. So we've come a long way, baby, you and me. C'est la vie. But, he will be missed, Stephen Colbert.
Well, and I'm sure he'll do something. He's not gonna be out of our lives. He's still a talented guy with a big fan base.
Yep. And like, think of other people. Conan O'Brien, the aforementioned Dana Carvey now has this popular podcast with Dave Spade. So
there was a lot of talk about, like, Trevor Noah quit Daily Show and James Corbin quit Late Show. I haven't really heard that much from those guys lately. I'm sure they still sing on piles of money, but there's an argument that you don't need to be chained to this desk to be in show business, and you might want to do other kinds of projects, which I'm sure is true, and it's a limiting format. But it's also not so simple to just like leave and all of a sudden you can do whatever you want. Everyone's going to watch what you do. So it's just a challenging business to be in.
Indeed. Kids, stay in school. Actually, don't stay in school. Become a plumber or something. Make a lot of money, and don't worry about this stuff, because it's a life of looking at Twitter to see if anyone has mentioned me.
On that note, read the article I wrote about Trump and his bait and switch on vocational education in the Washington Monthly that I wrote a few weeks ago.
That's a segue. Check that out. Bill, always a pleasure, man.
Same here.
We'll see
you
guys
in the DMZ. We'll talk soon.
In the DMZ soon.